Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unraveling a cultural tapestry that is just as vibrant as it is ancient. We're talking about Uttarakhand's folk arts. But, this isn't just going to be a history lesson. We're actually going to look at a beautiful tradition that is currently facing some severe modern tears in its fabric. So, let's dive right in. Okay, picture this. Marriages in Kumaon were once solemnized at sword point. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a historical fantasy epic, right? But this was the actual reality for the warring Kshatriyas of the Kumaon region over 1,000 years ago. And it perfectly sets the stage for us today, because to really understand the folk culture of this region, you absolutely have to understand its fierce martial origins. So, Section 1, Rhythms of the Himalayas. Let's talk about Choliya. The word itself actually comes from Choliya, which basically means a trickster who outwits their opponent. Dating all the way back to the 10th century, Choliya isn't just a dance. It's an intense performative depiction of a sword fight. It's essentially martial arts set to music. Imagine a huge troupe of 22 members where the dancers are engaging in actual fencing with swords and shields. They sometimes even form incredible human pyramids or pick up coins with their swords while leaping through the air. Historically, these performers would literally lead armies onto the battlefield to hype up the soldiers. Now, moving from the martial to the mythic, we have the Hudka Dance. This one is absolutely vital for the Chanchari tribe in Uttarakhand and the Hudka tribe in neighboring Himachal Pradesh. So instead of a mock battle, Hudka is a narrative dance. The dancers physically form these massive interlocking semicircles, usually with the men on the outer ring and the women on the inside. And they move in this perfect sync to narrate the heroic stories of local gods and epic historical events. It is literally history in motion. But here's the thing. The complex footwork, the martial arts, the storytelling, absolutely none of it happens without a serious beat. The specific percussion instruments you're looking at are the absolute rhythmic backbone of Himalayan dances. They totally guide the performers. And the history of these instruments holds a pretty massive surprise. Get this. After the Anglo-Gorkha War in 1815, the British were so intensely impressed by the bravery and athleticism of these mountain soldiers that they actually formed a specific Bahati battalion. But they didn't just want them to fight, they wanted a proper parade band. So the British trained these Himalayan warriors to play the Scottish bagpipes. No joke. Today, the bagpipe, which is known locally as the mushagabeen, remains a total staple in the Choliya Dance ensemble. Next up, we have the hurka. This drum is the true master of ceremonies. It completely dictates the pace. When the hurka plays, the dancers know exactly when to execute intricate footwork, when to freeze and strike a pose, and when to sway. It's just this beautifully synchronized conversation happening between the musician and the dancer. All right, Section 2, Dances of the People. This brings us to the Jhora. The name itself derives from joining hands, and that brilliantly tells you exactly what its purpose is: pure inclusivity. Jhora is a community circle dance aimed at breaking down caste barriers, bringing people of all backgrounds together. And this tradition is incredibly old. Its roots can actually be traced all the way back to prehistoric cave paintings found in the region. Plus, it's highly scalable. A circle might start off small, but it can swell to include up to 200 people dancing continuously for 24 hours straight. And when the energy really peaks, they even form a do manjila, which is a spectacular 2-story human pyramid. Then we have the Chanchari. The name roughly translates to something playful, kind of like the darting, unpredictable movements of a bee. So while Chora is all about that massive community celebration, Chanchari leans heavily into romance and really intricate skill. It's still a circle dance, sure, but it features much deeper rhythms and long-drawn musical tunes. It's often performed in a really captivating question and answer singing style. When you put the two side by side, the contrast is pretty wild. Jhora uses fast, simpler steps that match an easier rhythm, and the melody isn't dragged out at all. Chanchari, on the other hand, demands slow, super calculated steps, paired with a highly complex rhythm and long, sustained musical notes. They're both circle dances, but they evoke entirely different energies. Rounding out our community dances is the Chepeli. This one is a dynamic and highly romantic duet. The name implies speed and chancel energy. What's really fascinating here is the interplay. The male dancer actually plays the hurka drum while he dances, and the female dancer, or historically it was often a male cross-dressing to play the female part, dances playfully while holding a mirror in one hand and a handkerchief in the other. It's just an incredibly charming display of romantic courtship through rhythm and props. But now we need to shift gears a bit. Section 3, a culture in crisis. The reality is, the COVID-19 pandemic brought severe economic ruin to this artistic community. It quite literally became a question of life and death for performers who entirely relied on festivals and public gatherings. The government did attempt to intervene by announcing a 1,000 rupee relief grant per artist, but this caused a lot of friction. Many cultural organizations and artists actually boycotted money. In fact, our sources neutrally report that the grant was referred to by some as a lewd prank. The artists felt the amount was vastly insufficient to prevent starvation, which really exposed a deep, deep divide between state policies and the daily, on-the-ground survival of these artists. And this economic instability has serious long-term consequences. When surveyed about what occupation they actually want for their children, the numbers are pretty stark. A staggering 86.24% of artists stated they want the next generation to prioritize regular, stable jobs. Only 13.76% want their kids to continue the folk art traditions. The master artists themselves are pushing their own children away from the art form, purely out of economic necessity. Furthermore, when artists were asked if current government initiatives have actually improved their standard of living, almost 64% reported seeing absolutely no change at all. Now, a little over 36% did feel some improvement, but the majority consensus is clearly that the systemic support just isn't reaching the ground level effectively enough to actually alter their economic reality. And because of this massive economic migration away from the arts, coupled with modernization and people hiring modern bands for weddings instead of traditional groups, we are quite literally losing the sound of the Himalayas. Ancient, highly unique instruments like the algoja, the binai, and even those Scottish-influenced mashkabeen bagpipes we talked about, they're fading away into silence. They're being pushed out of the village courtyards. And if things don't change, perhaps forever. Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, Saving the Folk Arts. The good news is that comprehensive initiatives are currently being rolled out. The government has established zonal cultural centers to organize regular festivals and cultural exchanges. But they're also modernizing their approach to really try and capture the youth's attention. They are building a massive state cultural center with art galleries and amphitheaters. But the most impressive part? A virtual reality museum in Tehri. This museum is going to feature a state-of-the-art laser water projection right on the banks of the Bhagirathi River, literally telling the history of the Ganges through sound and light shows on water curtains. How cool is that? To address the crucial human element, master gurus are now being provided a monthly stipend of 7,500 rupees under the Guru Shishya Parampara scheme. It's a direct financial intervention. The master gurus receive this stipend, while their students also receive a smaller monthly sum. This is explicitly designed to fund the passing down of rare, vanishing art forms in a traditional 6-month to 1-year intensive training environment. It's a very direct, tangible attempt to make teaching these arts economically viable once again. So we've explored the fierce martial history, the amazing community bonds, the very real economic crises, and the modern technological attempts to save Uttarakhand's cultural heritage. But as we wrap up, I really want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. When the last hurka beats, will the next generation actually know the steps? Can virtual reality and government stipends outpace the rapid tide of modernization? Or are we witnessing the final acts of a 1,000-year-old tradition? It's a very fragile balance, and definitely one worth keeping an eye on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.